What is up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Steelers Now Postgame. Alan Saunders of Acrisure Stadium, Derrick Bell joining us today. And another game where it looked like it might have to be ugly. And then this one kind of turned okay by the end. 20-10 winners for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Chargers to open the season here at Acrisure Stadium. DB, I was already writing, and here we go again story, like Steelers offense looks like junk. They find a way to win, but it's not pretty. And when it was 13-10, in the fourth quarter, you kind of thought, oh, maybe they're just going to sit on this lead and end things and end with another win, but another kind of bad taste in your mouth to come along with it. And then things change, right? The last three drives, they get a field goal, they go down and score a touchdown, Justin Fields to Calvin Austin. They run the clock out at the end of the game, and I think those last three drives kind of leave you feeling with a little bit of a different feeling about this Steelers offense, not to mention, of course, going 0-3.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think, just going into this one, we kind of talked about it on the pregame show. We thought that this was going to be a little bit of a slugfest. Didn't expect many points. Now, the under still hit, like I predicted in the pregame show, but it wasn't by a lot. It looked like this one was, kind of getting away from the Chargers at the end of the game. But, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of expressed it very well. I think at certain points in this game, it kind of had you feeling like, the Steelers going to pull it out like they typically do, but you're not going to feel great about it. And then the fourth quarter happened and they kind of just exploded a little bit. And I think, it was good. I think in the first half, the Steelers rushing success rate, I think was around like 11%. I mean, they did nothing. They had nothing going on the ground up until the fourth quarter. But like we talked about, this was going to be a game where we were going to find out like how tough and how physical the Steelers team was. And we thought that on paper, this is a team that could match the Chargers' physicality in the trenches. It's safe to say they did that and then some. I mean, they ran the ball down the throat of the Chargers defense really in the second half into that fourth quarter. And then I thought like the pass rush really in the second half kind of kicked up too. Of course, Justin Herbert unfortunately exits this one with an injury coming into the game banged up too. But I thought just overall, like the Steelers started to kind of win the war of attrition and the physicality battle up front. And that leaves me feeling pretty good.
I think both sides of the Steelers team play a lot better with the lead. And it doesn't, obviously, you know why the defense plays well with the lead, right? You got the best pass rusher in the world in TJ Watt and a bunch of good complementary pieces around him. It's scary for other offenses to get into must-throw situations. And, by the way, as soon as the Steelers took that lead at 13-10, it was sack that knocked Justin Herbert out of the game, lost yardage in the punt, 2 sacks on the next drive, 4th and 24. And even though they were down 2 scores, the Chargers still punted. They never got the ball back. So as soon as the Steelers took the lead in this game, the defense completely shut the door. I think that's big. But I totally agree with your point. Like they come into these 2 fourth quarter drives knowing that they're in run the ball situations, and they were still able to run the ball. I thought Mason McCormick, they found something there, and to be able to use him as a run blocker. Najee Harris told me after the game he loves running behind him. That dude is a dog. He has a great run game mentality, and I think they've got some juice there to this. Wasn't a pretty game statistically for Najee, but I thought he ran extremely, not just hard, but just like technically very sound. He made a lot out of nothing early and then finally got some yards going. Probably, gets kind of ripped off of a touchdown at the end just because they can kneel the clock down. But do you have any doubt he was going in if they let him run the ball 3 times from the one there? The way things are going? Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the big thing for me is just like some of it's narrative based a little bit, but I think there is some validity to, having a 235-pound back. Like you mentioned, like the game script thing, playing with a lead. And like honestly, like today is like kind of like perfect storm for like how the Steelers want to win. Like people may not be over, like I think people should be excited about today's performance, but even if you're not, it may not be the most sexiest 20-10 victory. They might not be lighting up the scoreboard on a weekly basis, but this is kind of like how they want to play. I think they were able to find some explosive plays through the passing game today, which was nice to see. And then over the course of the game, like you'd like to start better, especially in the trenches in the first half. I thought their offensive line kind of got whipped around a little bit. But Najee just, like you said, like he really started imposing his will. I thought he ran really hard. He was consistently pushing the power forward. And a good point about McCormick too. Like I think that was the big thing for me when they selected McCormick was like he was such a good schematic fit for what Smith wants to do in the zone run game because McCormick's a pretty solid athlete. He can work lateral. He can get to the second level. And I think that he's a good fit for what they want to do. And I would be kind of surprised that they didn't try to get him even more playing time next week if Sayamalo's not ready. But yeah, I mean, in the defense too, like I think it says a lot about, the mentality of those guys. Cause I mean, J.K. Dobbins came into this one, of course, like against bad competition, but they had really beaten teams up on the ground so far. He came in as the NFL's leading rusher, finishes for like 15 carries, 45 yards or something like that, like less than 3 yards per carry. So I thought Patrick Queen really was kind of the tone setter of the defense today. And I was pretty impressed by, how they held up in the front seven.
Yeah, that's I want to get to some news before we get to some questions. But Matt Kinney here said, what do y'all think of PQ's performance? Got to catch the interception. But other than that, I thought this was his best game.
Yeah, no doubt. Like flowing fast to the ball. I thought, like I said, tone setting. I thought really he came out and made a couple run stops with some really good hits, like knocking guys backwards. And like this is kind of, we talked about this in the pregame. Like this is why you make a splash signing and bring in an off-ball linebacker. Like a lot of teams aren't spending big money at that position, but this is why the Steelers wanted to do this. They wanted somebody with range and having the combination of range and hit power and doing some things that PQ can. Yeah, I mean, the dropped interception was a bummer. I was so bummed for him, man, because like after talking to him this summer, I knew how excited he was to take the field as a Steeler for the first time. And, man, it was right to him. So that was a bummer, but just got to catch the next one. But, yeah, I thought this was definitely his best game of the season for sure.
A little bit of injury news to talk about. The Steelers lose Alex Highsmith, Van Jefferson, Corey Trice, and Jalen Warren in game in this one. Alex Highsmith, groin injury, did not look promising, comes out of the blue tent, slams his helmet down, does not return. Corey Trice must have been on the opening kickoff. I never even saw him get hurt. Did not return with a hamstring. Not great. Steelers were down to just James Pierre at corner because Darius Rush was a healthy scratch. And then Dante Jackson ended up missing a couple plays, and Pierre had to get in there. Running back, Tomlin just said he pulled Jalen Warren out himself, that Warren didn't tap out, but he didn't think he looked right. And obviously, man, that turned out to be a good decision because what a fourth quarter Cordell Patterson had, 33 yards on 4 carries or something like that. Pretty impressive stuff from the elder statesman of the running back room there, coming in that RB3 role with Warren down. I think, you can deal with injuries to backups, and certainly Van Jefferson ended up returning. Doesn't seem like it's a long-term thing. Just got poked in the eye and needed to get his vision to clear up. But the big injury here, Alex Highsmith with that groin, that's a big blow. I mean, as good as I think Nick Herbig is, and he certainly played well when he came in, that's a big blow to this defense.
Yeah, no doubt. Just before I hit on the edge part of this discussion, I just want to kind of touch on like Patterson, man. Like I don't think I truly appreciated like Cordell Patterson as a runner until I was really studying Arthur Smith's offense over the summer. And obviously I watched way too much Falcons tape. But one of the things I love about Patterson, man, is like he has a very unique ability to get downhill, even as a former receiver. Like there is zero finesse about his game at all. And kind of his, like he has this really tall, upright running style with like the long strides and the way he can lower his shoulder. He's actually pretty fun to watch, man. And like you don't see too many like 30 plus year old running backs, even in the NFL, much less like making an impact. So props to him for going out there. Yeah, I mean, like he had some really impressive runs down the fourth quarter. And again, like goes back to my point. Like it kind of helps to have 235-pound backs to kind of wear defenses down the stretch right there. But yeah, as impressive as Herbig was, and like you can't understate that at all. I mean, he beat Rashawn Slater twice. He missed a sack, or else he would have had a trio of sacks today. He beat the backup offensive lineman like super easily for another sack. I mean, the Steelers are very fortunate that they kind of have this pass rushing factory off the edge right now, and they have someone to kind of turn to because, Alex Highsmith is a good player and not very many backups are as good as Herbig, but it does certainly hurt your depth, especially like as we really don't know who the real fourth outside linebacker is. And, there
isn't one.
Yeah, it kind of sucks too, like with the soft tissue injury. Like those things always worry me more than anything else, other than like just the obvious like season enders, just because they just have a tendency to linger. I mean, you kind of mentioned that with Warren just a second ago. Like Warren had like a little bit of a soft tissue injury. Like in my opinion, he hasn't quite looked right at all this season. But I mean, it's one of those things you got to deal with.
Yeah, I think the area I'll be interested to see Herbig. We knew he could pass rush. You get him in here at the end of this game, and it was obvious pass rush situations. I think the challenge will be for him throughout the course of a game, holding up to first and second down, running plays throughout. He's a smaller guy for that position. That's something we haven't really seen him do yet. And then, Jonathan Taylor next week as well. So if Highsmith can't go, certainly should be a significant challenge. Let's get to some of these questions and comments here. We talked about PQ a good bit. We talked about Patterson.
Very good game.
Here's one from Hayden Bishop, a regular commenter here on the YouTube channel. O-line is primed to be a top 5 unit in a couple years here. Still some growing pains, but arrow is pointed way up. We didn't mention this earlier, but Broderick Jones playing this game with Troy Fautanu getting hurt on Friday. Seems like it's going to be a long-term absence for Fautanu, at least 4 weeks as he goes on the IR. I've been told probably more like 6 to 8 is like the front end of the time frame for a return. They're still not sure right now. But what did you make away this young offensive line played? I kind of agree that, like, I think there are going to be growing pains in the short term, but I kind of like the collection of guys they have long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to, they've invested significantly in that group. And I think it's going to hopefully sooner rather than later pay dividends. I mentioned, like, just getting started in this game, like the first half, they had a 12% rushing success rate. None of their early down runs in the first half were successful. So, like, it got off to a rough start. Khalil Mack was fantastic today. Like, I don't know how he's had this crazy resurgence over the past 2 years, but he was pretty dominant, especially against the run. But I thought over the course of the second half, like, you started seeing a lot of cutback lanes formed. I thought James Daniels may have had his most consistent day of the season. I thought I was pretty impressed. It seems like most of the good runs that they had were kind of hitting right behind
to the right.
some of his blocks. So I think Daniels played pretty well. I still agree with the overall sentiment. My goal this season was, like, if we can just get to the second half of the season and we can exit 2024 saying, all right, this Steelers offensive line, like, is a foundational group on this team, and they're, like, average, if like a top 15-ish unit, like, that would be a success for me because of how much youth there is. This group's going to look a lot better. Like, once Samalo gets back, as long as he's actually right and healthy, I think this group's going to continue to look better and better. And I thought that Broderick, I'm interested to go back and look at the film. He had the sack wiped away due to a penalty. But I thought, like, he didn't torpedo the offense. And, like, that's what we talked about in the pregame. Like, he just can't be consistently putting them behind the chains. And he didn't do that today. So, like, I think that's at least a step in the right direction. I'm interested to see what the film says there.
Yeah, I thought just at the first look that we got much more of, like, last year's Broderick Jones, where he was a plus in the running game, and he kind of held his own enough in the passing game that it was a net positive for the team. I agree. I thought most of the good runs went on the right side.
Yep.
A couple questions here about Justin Fields. Grayson Brown, he was impressed by JF2. What do you guys think of his play and response after the unfortunate interception? I thought the interception was probably one of the few, like, truly bad decisions I've made. It wasn't a bad throw. He hit Cordell Patterson. There was just too much traffic around, and he said he wanted that one back after the game. But I think his like baseline decision making has been okay. He's taking care of the football generally. I'm not too worried about one interception in 3 games. You keep that up all season, you're doing all right. I think the thing that I saw improvement from him was, especially as this game went on, is just finding the open guy and pulling the trigger. I think there was that one throw early where he, like, checks it down to Connor Hayward, and he had, like, Scotty Miller and whoever was in the second level, might have been Fryermuth. They were both open, and they had, like, 3 open guys, and he picked the nearest of the 3. Like, I think you saw as that game progressed, he just got a little bit more comfortable seeing what the defense was giving up, and then he is able to throw the ball into some tight windows. Like, it's not like he doesn't have he's always had good arm talent. I just think it's mostly about trusting himself and doing that internal calculus of, like, what's a risk that's okay to take and what aren't. And I thought he got better at that as this game went on.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by the way Justin played today, to be honest with you. You mentioned, like, the one bad decision to Patterson that ended up getting, like, a tip ball drill and picked or whatever. But I thought, like, really the couple things that I noticed, like, throughout the game was just how confident he looked. Like, some of the balls that he was trying, like the tight window throws, just like he looked a lot more decisive as a passer. We saw him work the middle of the field. I mean, entering the game, they had 0 completions of more than, I think, 6 or 7 yards in between the numbers so far this season. They had 2, one of which was the 55-yard touchdown to Calvin Austin on the catch and run today. But I actually think they had, like, 3 completions. And then, like, the 2, like, Pickens dropped that slant. It was really tight coverage. And then he threaded the needle on that kind of double slant concept in the first half when they were trying to drive to Fryermuth, who wasn't able to secure the catch either. So I think the big thing for me was just confidence, man. It can do wonders for a quarterback. And it's pretty cool just to like be able to see him play like that. And it felt like today was the most free that I've seen him play. I think, he's done a good job like cutting down on the mistakes, like the turnovers, cutting down on the sacks, et cetera, et cetera. But I think overall, like today was really good, man. Like the Steelers will win a lot of games with Justin Fields at quarterback if he plays like he did today.
There you go. Aaron wants to know, does Russ start next week? Is he healthy? I say yes. I say Russ isn't going to be healthy next week. The man is taking 0 snaps in team setting. At this point, it's been 2.5 weeks since he last did that. Even if he gets healthy next week, I think Justin Fields gets, over the course of next week, I think Justin Fields gets another one. And I'll tell you what, I don't think that I've gotten to a point where, like, Justin has been so good that you can't sit him. But I think he's trending in that direction. Like, if he improves again as much as he has from week to week between week 3 and week 4, that performance could be the one that says, hey, this guy's a quarterback.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a solid building block. I would say I think today would be enough for me to say that Justin's the quarterback. But I obviously don't speak for Mike Tomlin, who gets paid to make those decisions. So I kind of agree with you, though. Like, I don't know how, and not that we need to spend a ton of time talking about this, but Russ was like a quote unquote like game time decision against the Falcons and kind of quasi warmed up during that game. And he hasn't really practiced beyond like a limited capacity since. So I don't really know if this setback is maybe more significant than they're letting on, if they're just being really careful. I don't know. But another thing, like, I want to go back to, someone asked a question about Justin's release. That's the thing, is Justin's arm, like the RPMs that he can generate, like he can really spin it, but his release is slower. So you do see like some of the struggles in quick game are related to like the speed of his drop and the speed of just like his release, which is kind of slow for a starting quarterback. But the way you kind of the way you kind of get over that and can compensate for that a little bit is just being more confident, like be more decisive. I thought today was a big step in that direction in terms of seeing the field really well and just pushing the ball. And I thought that like today was the exact performance that I kind of wanted to see from Justin really since he's been here. And I think that, a lot of the talking points that have been going around, like he's taking good care of the ball, all that stuff, like that's all great. And I think that's been good. The Steelers are winning ball games. That's great. But if you really want to talk about like the Steelers being an actual threat in the AFC, I know they're 3-0, but if they're going to be like a legit threat in the AFC, they need Justin to play like he did today. And if he does, Steelers are going to beat a lot of people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this was the kind of game where you can kind of say, like, this is a fairly good Chargers team. I think they're trending toward being a playoff team, especially the way some of those other bubble playoff teams have started with Cincy 0-2, Baltimore 0-2, and Indy, Jacksonville. With all those teams struggling, I think this is like trending towards being a playoff team. I think this is a good win. I'm not sure it gets you to the point where you like feel good about going into Kansas City or Buffalo or somewhere like that in January yet, but I think it puts you in, like, look, I mean, if they just get this game out of Justin Fields and the running game and the defense, like, there's not a whole lot of teams on the schedule before week 9 they're going to lose to. Like they should win every week, maybe except Dallas. Like, that's the only team in the early half of the season that this game plan, this level of execution, I would not take the Steelers to win that game. And they might even beat Dallas with this level of execution. Now, going to get harder in the second half of the season, absolutely. But There's time for this offensive line to grow and gel and get those rookies some experience. There's time to get some injured guys back. They need Sam Allen badly, I think. But there's some other guys that might, going to get Cam Sutton back at some point. Yeah, I thought Beanie Bishop got picked on a little bit today, really, for the first time. Without Corey Trice there a little bit thin at corner. Like, there's definitely this team can grow and get better as the season goes on. But I really like where they are. Obviously 3-0, but just in terms of, like, I think this team can compete with playoff contending teams the way it's playing right now. Certainly still going to be better to really be a Super Bowl contender, but I think they're on the right track. Monongahela Mike, our guy, has a good comment here. Scotty Miller looked good. You know how hard it is to go into a game with 4 wide receivers and then you lose one of them in the first quarter? Scotty Miller played all 3 positions. he was awesome in this game. I don't think he didn't have a ton of numbers, but just like his ability to be a veteran, to go in there, keep those guys calm, and like that's that's a gutty performance from 13 there, and picked up that huge third down. He didn't do a ton receiving, but I just think his ability to get everybody in the game and lined up and man, like I think that was really key. That could have fallen apart pretty quickly with 11 on the sideline.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the big thing, you mentioned that play to Scotty Miller. I thought that was a pretty huge play in the game because the offense at that point was kind of struggling, and we talked about like them needing to find a way to get explosive plays. Like that's the one thing that's really been missing the most, in my opinion, from this offense. And like today, we got some catch and run opportunities that led to those things. Like Justin hitting Calvin Austin over the middle of the field a couple times for some explosive plays. Obviously, the big catch and run for the touchdown, but then Scotty Miller, that's a 3rd and 6. You're throwing a quick out at like 4 or 5 yards. Like if he doesn't make that tackle, if he gets tackled right there, he's short of the sticks, but then he breaks the tackle and then gets an explosive play. It is a huge play. And I want to mention like Calvin Austin too, like guys that kind of stepped up, and we've been pretty critical, and I think rightfully so, about the receiver room outside of George Pickens. But like today, like some of those auxiliary pieces made some huge plays, and I think you've got to give those guys credit when they step up. And I think there's still stuff with the offense. The run game, like we mentioned, like once the offensive line gets healthy and like you get some of these young guys with a couple starts under their belt, and like the big thing too that I want to like keep harping on is when you're like a heavy zone based running team, like those combination blocks, like you have to be like in unison in terms of like how you are working together on those double teams. And like that's the thing right now is like these guys are working next to people that they haven't really played with, like not just in their early in their career.
And then you lose the starting tackle on a Friday, so like they didn't even work with him this week.
Yeah,
Mason McCormick was not the extra offensive lineman in practice this week. That was Broderick Jones. Like that, they had to change everything they were doing on Friday halfway through practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I just think like the chemistry up front, along with just like a lot of these young guys hopefully getting more comfortable and like just getting better, which you'd kind of expect as the season goes on. It gets me pretty optimistic. Now again, like there are certain part that like there are a couple worrisome spots for me. I think the big thing for me that I still have got to see is I got to see them be effective in the play action passing game. Like I just don't like, for a team that doesn't have like the perimeter talent on the outside, like this is not going to be a super effective drop back passing game on a week to week basis. So like they kind of need to be able to generate some big plays off play action. And I don't know, man, I don't know what's going on. Like, I mean, I do know what's going on. Like defenses have just covered everything up, but every game they've taken, like tried to take like 2 or 3 shots off play action, whether they've been off crossers or just deep balls. Some of it's schematic related, but then like other times they're getting free rushers. Like Justin was sacked today as soon as he turned his back to the defense, turned back around, he's on the ground. So like that's an area that like they really need to improve a lot on. But I mean, this offense, at least like you said, like the way they finished the game today, at least gets you a little bit optimistic about things to come.
Yeah, I just want to run down those secondary receivers here. Pratt Farmouth, 4 for 33. Calvin Austin, 4 for 95. Cordell Patterson, 3 for 15. Scotty Miller, 2 for 31. I think that's a pretty solid contribution there. I think the play action pass to me is that like, the whole point of a play action pass is you want to suck people up, and then like Fields is kind of he has a hard time like getting his eyes back, I think sometimes. And the offensive line isn't blocking very well. So what's happening is if they're staying in, like if they're shading George, and there's a bunch of questions about George in here. I mean, I'll have to go back and watch, but I saw a whole bunch of safety shade to George Pickens, if not like outright cover 2 in this game, which I didn't really expect, considering how often I thought the Steelers were going to run the ball. But there was a whole bunch of 2 guys on George Pickens or high-low on George Pickens. And so if they're taking away that first one and they're crashing those short routes, that means like the second part of those short routes should be wide open. Like you should be getting Najee Harris turning a flat up with nobody on them because they're crashing those short routes. But the offensive line isn't holding their blocks long enough to get that second part of those short routes into action. I definitely think play action pass needs to be better. But yeah, I thought they definitely I thought the Chargers did a pretty good job of trying to take George Pickens away still. I mean, 5 for 57, nothing to sneeze at. But
And could have had another catch if he didn't drop
yeah,
that
he
one.
dropped
Like, I
one,
mean, it's
right? That was
a
another at
tight
least
catch,
10.
but he makes that catch 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I like this comment from. I'm not going to try to pronounce that one. G. G says Cam Hayward is also silencing a whole lot of people right now too. Man, 97's been on one his first 3 weeks. He's been incredible in the middle of that defense. The interior pressure was definitely affecting Justin Herbert a lot in this game because, guy has limited mobility. They're going to give the tackles help. They got like 100 extra tight ends and a fullback and 2 pretty solid blocking running backs. They had the ability to do a whole bunch of double teams and chips on the outside, but I thought their ability to push the pocket back into his face was definitely a difference maker in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely be tweeting this play out because I want it to make sure that it gets appreciated enough. But I think that the end zone angle of that play, I think it was early in the first half, they ended up having to settle for a field goal. Hayward pushed the pocket basically into Herbert's lap, and he was trying to throw that end breaker in the end zone, and like that's a touchdown. Like if he's able to really like step into that throw and rip it, like it's going to be a touchdown. And like I think Justin was a little bit affected by people in his lap. And I thought that in the first half, like the pass rush was a little bit quiet, but as the game wore on, that those guys kind of started dominating, looking like those guys that like we're expecting to see. And I think too, like another thing like you brought up earlier, just playing within good game scripts and playing with a lead and things like that. When you could play with a lead into the second half. I mean, how many times have we seen like people tweeting out like TJ Watt, he's obviously like one of the best players in the world, but like he almost feels inevitable at times, like especially in the fourth quarter. And the reason for that is because if the Steelers are winning and teams are trying to get like 5 out in the pattern, there's not very many tackles that even have a chance. Like no disrespect to Joe Alt, who had a fine game, but like they were giving him a lot of tackle or tight end chips and things like that. Well, when you're down 2 scores, you got to score quickly. You got to try to get 5 guys in the pattern. So like that increases your one-on-one opportunities. And I think like, again, like if this offense can start playing a little bit more aggressive and better in the first half of games, and like we can get to that point a little early in games, that where like people are talking about, I know Arthur Smith was saying like they felt like they were really close to like breaking the dam this week. That's how the dam kind of gets broken open, in my opinion, is like you start the games better earlier, because then like in the second half, if you're already up a couple scores, TJ and the edge rushers can start teeing off on the quarterback without as much of a threat of a run, and that in turn usually leads to more turnovers. So then you get short fields and things like that. So I mean, it's an encouraging start. I will be completely honest. Like, I did not have the Steelers starting 3-0 in the season. I don't know many people that did, but I am pretty impressed by what I've seen so far through 3 weeks, how they've got it done.
Yeah, the Chargers, they finished 3 for 11 on third downs. Talk about those obvious passing situations. That's not going to get it done. Second half, Steelers defense, 6 points combined in 3 games in the second half against this defense. That is an absurd statistic. And NFL's leading rusher in this coming into this one, J.K. Dobbins, 15 carries, 44, under 3 yards a carry for him. Gus Edwards, just 3 for 9. I thought they did a really nice job with the run as well. What do we got here? Clean up the penalties. Jim Pekarsky pointed that out. I thought that was, you think that's a lot of just teams getting into the season. There's a lot of sloppiness the first couple weeks in general, but I did, obviously the Steelers made, a significant reduction. They 3 penalties for 15 yards. The one of them did wipe out pretty decent gain from, was it Freiermuth? Yeah, Pat Freiermuth. But, in general, clean that up.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like, it may be maybe I'm 30 and just grumpy now. I don't know. But, like, there is nothing that infuriates me more these days than, like, pre-snap penalties. So, like, not knowing how many guys to line up on the ball, like, who's on, who's off, like, frustrates the daylights out of me. But today was better. I mean, 10 penalties and 9 penalties, I think, in the first 2 weeks, right? And they only had 3 for 15 for today. We're trending in the right direction. We're trending in the right direction.
The one illegal formation penalty, Connor Hayward was in a wingback position, off the line, and he just turns and looks and feels like there's nobody over here, and then the ball snaps, and he's just like, no, yeah. I don't know. Sorry,
yeah. Connor was looking in the backfield like, hey, bro, like either I'm in the wrong spot or we got to get somebody else over here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that'll be
one
a funny
that
one to
one
look
didn't
at.
work out so well.
Yeah.
Tim Pamato wants to know if we're looking at number one defense here. I've been saying that all offseason. I think this is potentially a number one defense, and I haven't seen anything so far that has really made me shy away from that. Alex Highsmith misses a bunch of the time, maybe, but man, I think they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, I came into the season saying that they were going to have, arguably the best front seven in the league. I've been pretty, they've done a good job like keeping the lid on explosive plays. I know Herbert got them the one time on that cover two rotation early in the game to Johnson, but for the most part, they kept the lid on explosive plays. I think the tackling has been pretty solid as well. And look, this team has more than enough talent to be a top five, maybe even best defense in the league. The course of the schedule will go along with like telling us if that's actually the case or not. Of course, like not just getting further into the season, but they're going to see like not that Justin Herbert isn't one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but like they're going to see guys like him that are also fully healthy later in the season. So we'll see. But I think the big thing for me is, this Mike brings up a good point right here. Just, I think sometimes time of possession can be a little bit overrated in certain ways, but like you can't deny that the amount of ball possession that the offense has been able to do through these first 3 weeks has kept the defense off the field. They look more fresh. I think that that's definitely an improvement over what we've seen the past couple of seasons. And it's just about playing like, complementary football. And I think today was like kind of the best I've felt about like both sides of the ball kind of providing major contributions for a big win. And we'll see what it looks like to Indy next week. I'm excited about that. But 3-0, man, it's pretty impressive.
For sure. This is the last one I want to get to. I did talk to Minka about the touchdown pass in the first half, and he said, yeah, that side of the field anyway. I didn't look at what was happening on the backside, but they were playing cover two on that side. Joey, has to get down to that flat receiver, and Minka it was like, you bait him, right? You start with middle of the field closed, and then Minka's got to run over to get to his half, and then, it's a whole shot, which is, common. But basically, their disguise didn't work, right? Because they're lined up like it was going to be cover three, and that route's no good against cover three if Joey's bailing, and he's going to kind of throw it anyway. And so, good call, I would say. Again, it didn't really fall for their disguise, and but yeah, Minka basically took that one on him for not being able to get over there. But he basically said, like, even if I had been not disguising the coverage and been over there, like, that is open against cover two most of the time. It's like maybe I just wouldn't have been able to stop it from being a touchdown.
Yeah, I think it's a good play. Like, like we just talked about with Herbert, like great quarterbacks like can beat great defenses on certain reps or maybe even through the course of a game. And that's just one where like he got the better of them. I mean, one thing that I think with Herbert that he does extremely well, like he's an incredible processor. Like he's super, super smart, but also something I tweeted out a clip of this like during the week when I was kind of studying the Chargers offense. Like you'll notice like on that play and like Joey was like reenacting this on the sideline too. And it was kind of funny. But Herbert like turns his shoulders like he's going to throw to the flat and that gets Porter to jump. Now, really, ideally, if you're going to like run like what I call like an NTT, if you're going to run that, like you really want your corner to at least get a hand on the receiver and like reroute him inside because that kind of squeezes or minimizes the distance between him and the half field safety, especially if you're going to be playing from the post. But I think like just that shoulder movement, I think Joey thought he might be getting lucky and getting a pick six there because they thought Herbert might throw it to the flat. But it's a good play. But I mean, overall, like, again, the defense was lights out. And the offense honestly was lights out in the second half. I mean, there's very, very little negatives to really even harp on beyond that. So
I agree. I will have lots more coming up this week. Stay here on the YouTube channel for Morning Rush and Afternoon Drive and Sights and Sounds and all that stuff. And then, of course, you can check out all DB stuff at his YouTube channel at Steelers_DB. Check him out on social media. I'm Saunders_PGH. And then make sure you go to SteelersNow.com. Check out all our written coverage there. Sign up for SN Plus, and you can get all the best stuff from me and DB. DB, anything else before we get out of here?
that's pretty much all I got. I think I'm going to try to go live on my channel here in a couple minutes. So If you guys have questions that you didn't get into me and Alan, I'm probably going to try to stream for about 20, 30 minutes if you guys want to head over there. It is Steelers_DB. I know all of you all, or hopefully all of you all, are subscribed over there already, but we could talk some more ball. And then like Alan said, we'll have plenty of content coming from you guys. My Dudes and Duds column will come up here shortly. And then, all of Alan's post-game work, and then, kind of our recaps through these first couple of days of the week. Excited to, get those to you guys.
All right, folks. Till next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.